In the opening scene of Get Out, a young black man walks alone through a quiet, upper-class neighborhood at night. When he's suddenly abducted, the moment is terrifying, but it's also painfully recognizable. The fear isn't random. It comes from a long history of violence against black people. That's what horror does so well. It doesn't create fear out of thin air. It's inspired by the anxieties we already live with and shows them to us in a form that feels both surreal and uncomfortably true. Horror films are mirrors, reflecting societal tensions, our moral fears, and the issues we'd rather not face directly. Get Out is one of the clearest examples of this, using horror to expose the racial anxieties and political divisions shaping America in the late 2010s. Great horror films aren't just meant to scare us, they're political stories that reveal the fears embedded in the world we're living in right now. Get Out, directed by Jordan Peele, came out in 2017, right in the middle of some of the most intense national conversations about race in recent history. The Black Lives Matter movement had already brought to light the issue of police brutality, especially after the deaths of Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Philando Castile, and others. On top of that, the 2016 election had just exposed how divided the country was, with arguments about systemic racism, white nationalism, and what it even means to be an ally happening everywhere. During all of this, Peele released a horror movie that didn't rely on ghosts or mass killers. Instead, Get Out focused on a much quieter, more familiar kind of fear. The threat hidden in white liberal spaces where people can seem friendly and well-meaning, but end up objectifying, using, or silencing black people, all while insisting they're one of the good ones. In Get Out, Chris Washington goes with his girlfriend Rose Armitage to meet her family, who go out of their way to present themselves as progressive and woke. Dean Armitage, the dad, immediately tries to prove how not racist he is by saying,
"I would have voted for Obama for a third term."
The line is a perfect example of performative allyship, a way of signaling that you're on the right side without actually doing anything. As the weekend goes on, the Armitages and their friends keep slipping in these uncomfortable microaggressions that reveal how they really see Chris. At the garden party, guests bombard him with comments that sound like compliments but are actually objectifying.
Okay.
Oh, is it true? Is it better? Wow.
Black is in fashion.
Do you find that being African American has more advantage or disadvantage in the modern world?
The sunken place is one of the most haunting and politically charged elements of Get Out. Chris is sent there during Missy Armitage's hypnosis session, which begins under the guise of helping him quit smoking but quickly becomes a method of control. As she forces him to relive the trauma of his mother's death, Chris suddenly loses control of his body and falls backward into the vast dark void where he can see the world but not participate in it. Jordan Peele has explained that the sunken place represents the way black voices are pushed aside in America, saying how no matter how hard we scream, the system silences us. The film's climax finally shows just how horrifying the Armitage family's operation really is.
I believe they've been abducting black people, brainwashing them, making them work for them as sex slaves and shit. Oh, sorry about the shit.
They're kidnapping black people and literally putting white people's brains into their bodies. It's extreme and grotesque, but it's also a pretty direct metaphor for the long history of exploiting black people in America. The auction scene where wealthy white guests casually bid on Chris like he's a product makes this connection impossible to ignore. The white characters want Chris's youth, his strength, his vision, but they have no interest in his thoughts, his experiences, or his humanity. They want what he can offer, not who he is. This reflects a bigger pattern in American culture. Black music, fashion, slang, and athleticism are celebrated and consumed, while black people themselves are often devalued or treated as disposable. The very end of Get Out features one of the most tension-filled moments in the film, when Chris escapes the Armitage estate and a police car suddenly pulls up, triggering the audience's immediate fear that as a black man covered in blood, he will be misread as the aggressor. But this is not an irrational fear. It's rooted in real-world experiences of racial profiling and police brutality. Jordan Peele intentionally plays on this anxiety, reminding viewers that even after surviving the Armitages, Chris still lives within systems that routinely criminalize black men. The ending forces viewers to confront the realities that shape their expectations, making it a powerful conclusion for a film made to expose how horror mirrors societal tensions. Get Out draws directly from anxieties about race and power, showing that danger can exist even in spaces that seem progressive. By framing this in horror, the film turns everyday microaggressions and systemic racism into something terrifying. It works not by creating new fears, but amplifying ones that already exist. The horror genre matters because it refuses to let us look away from the fears that shape our world. Get Out makes this clear by exposing different facets of racism hidden beneath everyday interactions, but it's far from the only film to use terror as a political lens. Throughout the history of the genre, horror has reflected the cultural pressures of its moment. Night of the Living Dead confronted racial violence and societal collapse during the Civil Rights era. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre captured anxieties about economic decay post-Vietnam War. The Purge series imagines a society where inequality and state violence are taken to their logical extremes. Even more recently, films like The Menu and Companion reflect our anxieties about wealth inequality, classism, technology, and gender power dynamics. By exposing these fears through horror, films like Get Out show exactly why these issues matter. They turn real-world issues into something tangible, showing that the fears on screen aren't just fiction. They reflect reality.